I just got back from IBC in Amsterdam, where I walked around the show floor for 3 days and have loads of ideas in my head of things that I'd love to see Blackmagic make. Here are 5 of them. A multi-converter box, possibly modular. If you're anything like me, making a change from the ATEM HDMI setup to an ATEM SDI setup, then you have a lot of converters in your hands while you make that move over to SDI. That's certainly my current finding in my studio here, where I have 3 on this side of the room and 3 on that side of the room, while I pass HDMI one way and SDI the other way. While the boxes themselves don't take up much space, it is the power for each one that really adds up. What I'd love to see is a rack-mountable set of boxes, or possibly even modular boxes, to solve these sorts of issues. They could fit in their 1/3, 1/2, or full rack design and let you bring in multiple HDMIs, multiple SDIs, or the other way around. Could even sit on the desktop as well, so for my use case, I could have a 4-in, 4-out version where I can bring out 4 HDMI connections and send in 4 SDI connections. Of course, we'd all want our own version of this, so a modular approach could work really well for this, where it's a pretty standard box, and then into that you can put in some cards for SDI or HDMI, depending on your use cases. In this modular example, I could have 4 HDMI inputs and 4 SDI outputs, perfect for right beside my computer, for example. And then on the other side of the room, I could have 4 SDI inputs and 4 HDMI outputs. That way I can turn those SDI signals into HDMI for monitors. I do get why they might not want to head down this modular approach, but the Universal Video Hub is one they've done in the past, and it does make sense for certain setups. That said, a fixed set of rack-mountable multi-converters would be really nice for many use cases, and I know many of us would love to see them. Interchangeable lens PTZ. I would love to see Blackmagic follow along the footsteps of Sony with their FR7 that was just announced, an interchangeable lens PTZ. It'd be perfect for the Blackmagic camera setups. Now they might end up using the MFT lens mount. For me, that would be perfectly fine because I have a bunch of those, but I know the zoom part of the PTZ would be a little bit difficult to get right on those MFT lenses. I would love to use that Sony camera here in my studio if I can spring the money for it, but I will need to get the controller as well, or possibly the iPad app to make adjustments to the camera, and then we're stepping outside of the ecosystem of Blackmagic and the ATEM control, so it'd be really nice to bundle that all together. If you have one of the ATEM advanced panels as well, you can control PTZs on those, but I believe it's a little bit difficult to get it working with most cameras. Although if Blackmagic made the camera, I'm sure they could make it work for that camera. I would be very surprised to see something like NDI or an IP-based protocol on the PTZ camera, but 2 SDI cables to and from an ATEM would work just fine in my setup. A mini control panel. We all know that the ATEM mini lineup is a great size, a great form factor to sit right on your desk. And I'd love to see that size utilized to control other ATEMs in the lineup. It'd be fine to see the same type of buttons coming from the ATEM mini panels, or even the same ones from the advanced panels, which are a little bit more professional and used for that environment, brought down to this small ATEM mini panel. Now they can't call it an ATEM mini panel, of course. That'd be quite confusing. I don't know what they would call it, the ATEM not so advanced panel, the ATEM desktop panel, no idea, but they can come up with a nice name themselves. The use case here would be, I just want to control a small portion of an ATEM, or maybe just 1 ME of an ATEM, and the advanced panel is a bit too far outside of the price zone of what I want to spend. You can take a look at my recent video on how to use Companion to control an ATEM from another ATEM, but this setup is a little bit clunky. Once you get it set up, it works nicely, but it takes a while to get to that point. And I know if Blackmagic made the device themselves, it'd be a bit easier to set up this whole workflow. Audio panel for the ATEM. To go alongside the ATEM not so advanced panel that we just talked about a second ago, I would love to see an audio version of that, or in addition to the previous one, would be really nice. Now I know this is possible with a MIDI controller, but in my experience it's not been the best way to do it. I would much prefer a dedicated device that's made for that job. And we can just head over to Scarhoy, take a look at the devices they make, which we did at IBC, and saw that they have lots of options in this setup, so maybe that's a good option too. But if you take a look at the Fairlight desktop console from Blackmagic, it'd be nice to see something like that working with the ATEM. Maybe they can make that happen. Bigger SDI VideoHub. Now this one's not for me, but I know there's lots of people out there that want bigger than a 40x40 SDI VideoHub. 60x60, 80x80 and beyond. 20x20 will do me just fine for now. I don't even have one, but if I did get one right now, it would be in that size. But who knows where we'll be in a couple of years' time, what kind of stuff I'll be working on, what kind of projects or studio I'll have set up. Knowing that there's options out there by the time I get there would be really nice. The current solution to this is to get a couple of 40x40 video hubs and decide what inputs goes into one and outputs goes out of the other. It can get pretty tricky whenever you're setting that up in an installation. And another solution is to go for a different brand altogether. Always an option, of course, but people tend to like to stick to one brand for a lot of their stuff. So overall, and to kind of undermine this whole video that I just made, what I did find at IBC is there's lots of vendors out there making all these little pieces that go into this setup that are working just fine, and you can get them today. All the controller stuff that I mentioned before, of course, you could go to Scarhoy for. You can get video hubs that are huge from other companies, and you can get other things that'll work just fine for your converter setups. So it does exist already, and you might find it out there. But I think the tricky thing for Blackmagic, and specifically with the PTZ I mentioned, is that the camera itself is something that's really nice to control in that ecosystem. And the ecosystem is a huge part of what they're up to these days. So the further they go down into that ecosystem, the more of the devices they need to support or create themselves. And that's why all of these are still valid things that I'd love to see them have an attempt at. If you've seen any devices out there that I should take a look at and you don't think I've seen before that will tick some of these boxes, then do send them my way in the comments below. Or if you want to give a +1 to any of these ideas, we can flesh them out in the comments some more. Maybe get Blackmagic to watch this video, then do let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.